But let's cross now to Carrickawlinga, south of Adelaide, and catch up with former Foreign Minister and former High Commissioner to the UK, Alexander Downer. Thanks for joining us again, Alexander. When I spoke to you last week, there was a lot of concern about Boris Johnson's health in the UK. Well, it's a hell of a crisis for the country now, really, isn't it?
Well, I think two things about it. First of all, the reports that are coming out of London this morning, and I've been talking to people in London, are that that is this evening our time, that his situation is stable. So that's a little bit encouraging. He hasn't needed any oxygen, and he is apparently perfectly conscious. But secondly, I'm not sure about it being such a crisis. It's more not a constitutional crisis because these things can be managed, of course, but it's much more a crisis of confidence in the country. I mean, some people wouldn't have voted for Boris, of course, in the election, but the idea of the Prime Minister being taken down in this way has filled people with horror, and I think has been quite a blow to the morale of the country. So they're all very passionate about him getting better and getting better soon.
Yeah, well, he kind of conveyed an image of himself as being indestructible, boasting about shaking hands with coronavirus patients. I mean, that's obviously a mistake. But I think you're right. When the country really needs leadership and wants to know it can get through this crisis, very difficult knowing that the leader of the country is in intensive care.
Well, and he's a bit different from the average leader. I mean, he's a great character, a great personality, and a very strong user of language. So he's an excellent communicator with the public. And although, as I say, I mean, some people didn't vote for the Conservatives at the last election, a huge number did. And as a Prime Minister, his popularity has rocketed up through this coronavirus crisis, as you've seen with Scott Morrison as well. And for him to be strapped down in this way has really shocked people and has been a blow to national morale. And people are really rallying to Boris now in the hope that he'll get better and get better soon, as we all do. Hope he does.
Now, I hear that they're attacking you on Twitter, as they tend to do, a bit of a Twitter storm, but because you tweeted out a comment really that's about the essential problem here, the paradox of dealing with this issue, and that is to stop the virus, you have to sort of kill off the economy or society. It's a terrible balancing act of trying to pick the least worst option. You said we either save avoidable deaths and destroy society, or we accept avoidable deaths and save society. How do you think we're going, getting that balance right across the world and particularly in Australia?
Well, I mean, I put things on Twitter, but I must admit I'm not quite sure what sort of animals live out there in Twitterland. It's the most abusive forum that I had ever come across in my life. But it is as it is. I mean, I want people to think about this. Obviously, what the government is trying to do in Australia, as they are in the UK and elsewhere, is get the balance right. We obviously want to try to avoid people dying, but at the same time, we want to avoid destroying. And it's not just the economy, it's society. It destroys the structures of society. And what I mean by this really is for people to think about this, because the real issue is going to be how do we extricate ourselves from the lockdowns that we're in around the world. And at some point, we have to. You can't keep people locked up in their houses indefinitely. You can't keep paying these huge subsidies, multi-billion-dollar subsidies to people indefinitely either. So there has to be an exit strategy. Now, we obviously hope that the exit strategy isn't going to lead to more lives being lost. On the other hand, we do need an exit strategy which ensures that our whole way of life and our society, not just the economy, but including the economy, are not destroyed in the process. So,
yeah, it's a diabolical dilemma, and we've got to debate it freely. I just want to get your thoughts before we let you go on Donald Trump really attacking the World Health Organization, understandably so, but also via that, of course, China. The role of China, its deception, and the way the World Health Organization has seemingly refused to call it out has been crucial in allowing this virus to spread so widely early on.
Well, I wouldn't blame the World Health Organization for allowing the virus to spread, or for, obviously not being the source of the virus, it being based in Geneva.
They did oppose travel bans early on.
Yes, and I think all of us underestimated how virulent this virus would turn out to be. There's barely a person I know who didn't underestimate that. As the doctors keep saying, we don't know enough about it, and we're learning more as every day goes by. But the point I'd make about the WHO is, and the United Nations more generally, where are they when these crises erupt? National governments are the organisations that have to deal with it, and they deal with it within their borders as best they possibly can. So all the glorious talk about multilateral institutions and the great progress that's been made through multilateralism comes to nothing when you hit a major crisis of this kind. And as for China, I've made the point on many occasions. The fact is that this virus, as SARS before it in 2002, 2003, started in the markets of China, or certainly started in China. And if China wants to continue to trade with the world and be integrated into the global economy and the global political and economic system, it has to ensure that it has, amongst other things, proper standards, proper biosecurity standards in this case, proper standards of welfare. Animal welfare. They can't allow viruses continually to be spread from their markets into the broader international community and do this sort of crippling damage to our economies and more broadly to our societies. And they're going to have to learn, to start to pull their weight and become more of a mainstream part of the international community.